The 1980 World Series was the championship series of Major League Baseball's 1980 season. The 77th edition of the World Series. It was a best-of-7 playoff played between the National League champion Philadelphia Phillies and the American League champion Kansas City Royals. The Phillies defeated the Royals in 6 games to secure their first World Series championship in franchise history. Third baseman Mike Schmidt was named the World Series MVP. The series concluded with Game 6 in Philadelphia, which ended with closer Tug McGraw striking out Willie Wilson at 11:29 p.m. on Tuesday, October 21st. Wilson set a World Series record by striking out 12 times in the 6-game set. Game 6 is also significant because it stands as the most watched game in World Series history, with a television audience of 54.9 million viewers. The Kansas City Royals became the second expansion team, and the first from the American League, to appear in the World Series. The American League had to wait until 1985 before one of their expansion teams, the Royals, won a World Series. This was the first of 5 World Series played entirely on artificial turf: 1985, 1987, 1993, 2020. This was also the first World Series since 1920, and the most recent, in which neither team had a previous World Series title. With their victory, the Phillies became the final team out of the original 16 MLB teams to win the World Series. However, the Philadelphia team had won the World Series before, the last being the Athletics in 1930, exactly a half-century earlier. In a twist of fate, the Athletics played 13 years in Kansas City before relocating to Oakland. The Philadelphia Phillies entered the decade as the only one of the original National League teams not to have won the Fall Classic. Born in 1883, the franchise had gone 96 years without a championship, and it felt to Philadelphians as if the team had languished under a cruel curse for its entire existence. Unlike the Boston Red Sox and Chicago Cubs, the Phillies didn't have a cute name for their curse. They didn't have the curse of the Bambino or curse of the Billy Goat. For almost a full century, the Fightin' Phils were simply a bad baseball team. Last place finishes piled up. They had made the postseason just 5 times in those 96 years, winning pennants in 1915 and 1950, along with 3 straight National League East titles in the mid-70s. However, the Phillies seemed to have it all in 1980, including eventual most valuable player, third baseman Mike Schmidt, 48 home runs, 121 RBIs, .286 batting average, and Cy Young Award winner, lefty Steve Carlton, 24-9 with a .234 ERA. This mostly veteran club finished between first and third in almost all offensive categories in the National League. 39-year-old Pete Rose led the club in hits 185 and doubles 42, while speedsters center fielder Gary Maddox and utility outfielder Lonnie Smith combined for 68 steals. The pitching staff was just good enough, led by Carlton and 17-game winner Dick Ruthven. In the bullpen was the ever-enthusiastic screwballer Tug McGraw, who was making his 3rd trip to the series, having ridden the bench with the New York Mets, winning in 1969 and losing in 1973. The Royals had a most valuable player of their own in the indomitable superstar, third baseman George Brett, who flirted with the sacred 400 mark all summer with an average above 400 as late as September 19 before settling for a .390 batting average, with 24 homers and 118 RBIs in 117 games. The unquestioned heart and soul of the Royals was surrounded by a solid core of veterans. Amos Otis, super-designated hitter Hal McRae, solid second baseman Frank White, and switch-hitting leadoff man Willie Wilson, who finished the season with 230 hits and 79 stolen bases. 6 KC pitchers had 10 or more wins, led by 20-game winner Dennis Leonard and left-hander Larry Gura. Submariner closer Dan Quisenberry won 12 games out of the bullpen and accumulated 33 saves, tied for best in the American League with Rich Gossage. Phillies starter Bob Watt became the 3rd rookie to start the first game of the World Series, the first since Joe Black of the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1952. The Royals jumped on him early with a pair of 2-run home runs. In the second, Amos Otis lifted one to left after a leadoff walk of Darrell Porter, and Willie Aikens went over right center with 2 outs in the third, following Hal McRae's single up the middle and a called strikeout of George Brett. The Kansas City threat continued until Porter was thrown out at home. In their half of the third, the Phils rallied off Dennis Leonard. Shortstop Larry Bowa singled with one out, stole second and scored on catcher Bob Boone's double. Lonnie Smith's RBI single then cut the Royals, led to 4-2, but Smith was caught in a rundown heading back to first, which allowed Boone to score. With the bases clear and 2 outs, Pete Rose was hit on the calf and Mike Schmidt walked on 5 pitches. Bake McBride launched the first pitch to right center for a 3-run home run and the Phillies led 5-4. Designated hitter Greg Luzinski fanned for the third out. In the fourth inning, Manny Trillo chopped a high bouncer over Leonard for an infield single, advanced to second on an errant pickoff throw, and to third as Bowa bounced to second for the second out. Ninth in the order and with a 3-1 count, Boone doubled again to score Trillo and knock Leonard out of the game. Reliever Rennie Martin retired Smith on the fly out to right. After loading the bases in the fifth with 1 out on a single, hit by pitch, and walk-off Martin, Gary Maddox's sacrifice fly to left on full count scored Schmidt for a 7-4 lead. Trillo popped out to first to end the threat. Heitless Brett opened the eighth with a double to left center off of walk, and went to third on the wild pitch to Akins, who hit another 2-run home run to right center to cut the lead to 1. Closer Tug McGraw entered with the bases clear and no outs, faced a minimum in the final 2 innings for a 7-6 Phillies victory. Prior to this victory, the Phillies had not won a World Series game since Game 1 in 1915 against the Boston Red Sox, when Grover Cleveland Alexander had pitched a shutout. Game 2 was a pitcher's duel between left-handers Larry Gura and Steve Carlton. After a 1-out single and subsequent double in the fifth, Manny Trillo's sacrifice fly and Larry Bowa's RBI single put the Phillies up 2-0. The Royals cut it to 2-1 when Amos Otis scored from second on Trillo's error on Willie Akins's ground ball in the sixth. Carlton looked in control until, acting on a complaint from Kansas City manager Jim Frey that he was using a foreign substance on the ball, the umpires made Carlton wash his hands. In the seventh, Carlton loaded the bases on 3 walks, the last intentional, and Otis ripped a double into the left field corner to drive into. Then John Wathan's sacrifice fly to center extended the Royals, led to 4-2. Questionably, Otis was caught in a rundown after also tagging up from second. Rose cut the ball and threw to Schmidt, who tagged him halfway back to second to end the inning. The Phillies rallied in the 8th inning off closer Dan Quisenberry, after a lead-off walk to Bob Boone. Pinch hitter Del Unser's RBI double to left center cut the Royals, led to 4-3. A ground out to first by Pete Rose advanced Unser to third, and a high chopper single by Bake McBride over the drawn-in infield tied the score. Mike Schmidt drove in McBride to take the lead with a double off the wall in right center, then scored on Keith Moreland's single up the middle to lead by 2. Pinch hitter Greg Gross grounded into a 6-4-3 double play. Ron Reed took over for Carlton in the 9th, struck out 2, and held the Royals scoreless for the save as Philadelphia went up 2-0 heading to Kansas City. Kansas City got back in the series with a thrilling extra inning victory in Game 3. George Brett, having returned from minor surgery after Game 2, began the scoring with a home run into the right field stand in the first off Dick Ruthven. The Phillies loaded the bases in the second off Rich Gale with 1 out on 2 singles and a walk, but only scored once on Lonnie Smith's ground out. In the fourth, Willie Akins tripled with 1 out and scored on Hal McRae's single, but Mike Schmidt's home run in the fifth again tied the game and knocked Gale out of the game. Amos Otis gave the Royals a 3-2 lead in the seventh with a home run, but Pete Rose's RBI single with 2 on in the eighth off Rennie Martin, who had relieved Gale, again tied the game. Ruthven pitched 9 innings and was relieved in the 10th. The game headed into extra innings and in the bottom of the 10th, Willie Akins drove in Willie Wilson with a single to left center for the game-winning run off Tug McGraw. A beautiful Saturday afternoon was the setting for Game 4. The Royals jumped all over Phillies starter Larry Christensen in the bottom of the first. Willie Wilson doubled, George Brett tripled him in, and Willie Akins smashed his 3rd home run of the series. The onslaught continued when Amos Otis doubled in Hal McRae, who had also doubled, to give the Royals a 4-0 lead right out of the gate. Christensen would only last a third of an inning before being relieved. After the Phillies scored a run in the second on Larry Bowa's RBI single off Dennis Leonard, Akins hit his 2nd home run of the game in the bottom half and became the first player in World Series history to have a pair of 2 home run games. The Phillies cut away at the Royals, led on sacrifice flies by Bob Boone off Leonard in the 7th and Mike Schmidt off Dan Quisenberry in the 8th run charged to Leonard, but fell short as Leonard held them in check and Dan Quisenberry finished the game to help Leonard atone for his Game 1 loss. The Royals won 5-3 to tie the series. Despite the Royals' victory, Game 4 is best remembered for Dickie Knowles' fourth-inning brushback pitch under Brett's chin that ultimately prompted the umpires to issue warnings to each team. Brett told Baseball Digest in March of 1998 that he had no idea if that brushback pitch by Knowles turned the series around. "All I know is we lost." Mike Schmidt, in his book Clearing the Bases, called it the greatest brushback in World Series history. Akins later said that he had been expecting it to happen to him in retaliation for his 2 home runs. Played in the afternoon sun and shadows, pivotal Game 5 was scoreless through the first 3 innings. In top of the 4th, Pete Rose laced a line drive off starter Larry Gura, but was thrown out by second baseman Frank White. Big McBride dragged a bunt to Gura, but first baseman Willie Akins' foot was not on the base. On a 2-2 count, Mike Schmidt homered to center to put the Phillies up 2-0. Greg Luzinski grounded out to third and Keith Moreland popped out to third. In the bottom of the 5th, UL Washington singled to center and Willie Wilson hit a grounder between shortstop and third that was an infield single. After a sacrifice bunt from White that nearly went for a hit, George Brett's RBI ground out to second off Marty Bistrom cut the Phillies, led to 2-1. Akins walked, but Hal McRae flew out to the base of the right field foul pole to strand Wilson at third. In the Kansas City 6th, red-hot Amos Otis tied the game with a lead-off home run to left. After solid singles by Clint Hurdle and Darrell Porter put runners on the corners with no outs, Bistrom was relieved by Ron Reed, who allowed a sacrifice fly to left by Washington which put the Royals up 3-2. Wilson doubled to right, but Porter was thrown out at home by Manny Trillo's relay and White fouled out to third. In the top of the 7th, Schmidt flew out to right, and Luzinski walked. Smith came in to run and Moreland singled, ending Gura's day. Closer than Quisenberry induced fielder's choice groundouts by Maddox and Trillo to end the threat. In the bottom half against closer Tug McGraw, Brett and Akins struck out swinging, then McRae doubled to left. Otis was intentionally walked, and Joe's Cardinal batted for Hurdle, but flew out to center on the first pitch. In the Phillies' 8th, Bowen nearly beat out a grounder out to second, then Bob Boone reached on a low throw by Brett and continued to second. Rose grounded out to second and Boone went to third, but was stranded when McBride also grounded to second. In the bottom half, Porter grounded out to second, Washington fanned, and Wilson chopped a slow grounder towards third, but was thrown out by McGraw. Down by a run, Schmidt led off the 9th inning with an infield single off of drawn-in third baseman Brett's glove. Pinch hitter Del Unser drove him home from first with a double that bounced over Akins' glove and into the right field corner. After a bunt down the first baseline by Moreland moved Unser to third, Gary Maddox grounded to third for the second out. On a 0-2 count, Trillo drove in the go-ahead run with a line shot that ricocheted off Quisenberry for an infield hit, almost thrown out by Brett. Boa grounded to shortstop on the high hopper to end the inning. In the bottom of the 9th, White led off with a walk. Brett was caught looking. Akins walked on 4 pitches, and was lifted for pinch runner Onyx Concepcion. McRae hit a fly well down the line that was just foul, then grounded to shortstop for a fielder's choice. Otis walked on 4 pitches to load the bases, but McGraw silenced the crowd by striking out Cardinal with an inside fastball on the 1-2 count to end the game. With a chance to close out the series at home in Game 6, Steve Carlton was the starter for Philadelphia. In the bottom of the 3rd, Bob Boone walked, then was safe at second on Lonnie Smith's ground ball, as shortstop UL Washington was past the base when he caught the ball from second baseman Frank White. Pete Rose then bunted for a single down the third baseline to load the bases. Mike Schmidt's single to right center scored 2, which ended Royals starter Rich Gale's night. Rennie Martin entered with runners at the corners and no outs and retired the side. Big McBride fouled out, Greg Luzinski hit a soft liner to third, and Gary Maddox flew to right. In the 5th, Smith hustled to turn a routine single to left center into a double, advanced to third on Rose's fly to left center, and Schmidt walked on a full count. Left-hander Paul Splater relieved Martin, and McBride's slow ground out to shortstop moved up both runners to put the Phillies up 3-0. Lazinski also grounded out to shortstop. Next inning, Maddox singled to left, but Manny Trillo grounded back to Spleeter for 1-6-3 double play. On a 2-2 count, Larry Bowa doubled to left and scored on Boone's single to center, making it 4-0 Phillies. Smith flew out to right center. John Wathan walked on 8 pitches to lead off the 8th, and Joe's Cardinal singled to left to end Carlton's night, relieved by closer Tug McGraw. White fouled out to first. Willie Wilson walked on 5 pitches to load the bases. Washington flew to left center for a sacrifice fly. George Brett got an infield hit to reload the bases, but Hal McRae grounded out to second. In the bottom half, closer than Quisenberry set the Phillies down in order: Maddox, Trillo, Bowa. In the top of the 9th, Amos Otis was caught looking on a breaker. Willie Aikens drew a walk on full count, and Onyx Concepcion came in to run. Wathan singled to right, and Cardinal singled to center to load the bases. White fouled out on the first pitch, gobbled by Boone and caught by Rosa in front of the Phillies dugout. Wilson fell behind on a 0-2 count, took a pitch slightly high, then fanned on a fastball to end the series. It was the 12th time Wilson struck out in this series, setting a new World Series record. The previous mark of 11 had been held jointly by Eddie Matthews and Wayne Garrett in 1958 and 1973, respectively. It stood until 2009, when Ryan Hurd struck out 13 times, ironically on the Phillies team which lost to the New York Yankees. Boone's knees were so sore by the end of the World Series that he could barely make it to the mound after the final out was recorded. When the World Series began in 1903, the National and American Leagues each had 8 teams. With their victory in the 1980, the Phillies became the last of the original 16 franchises to win the series, although the St. Louis Browns never won a series in St. Louis, waiting until 1966, 12 years after becoming the Baltimore Orioles. While third baseman Schmidt was the official MVP of the 1980 World Series, the Babe Ruth Award, another World Series MVP, was given to closer McGraw.